Alright, let's crank up the volume and peel out into the world of muscle cars, but with a twist. In this video, we're not just admiring the chrome, we're dissecting a legend, the 1983 Dodge Charger Shelby. Was it the king of the hill, or was it wearing a crown that was a little too big? Stick around, because what you think you know might just get a serious tune-up. Now, the 83 Charger Shelby. When you popped the hood, you weren't greeted by a roaring V8 that could shake the neighborhood. Instead, you found a surprisingly sophisticated 2.2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. I know, a four-banger and a Charger? Sounds like putting ketchup on a perfectly good steak, doesn't it? This little engine was engineered to surprise, but just how surprising? We'll get to that. Sure, it's a turbocharger, but what secret sauce made it a Shelby and not just another Charger? This turbocharged heart pumped out a respectable 175 horsepower. Think about that for a second. That's enough juice to get your adrenaline flowing, even if it wasn't going to win you any pink slips against a true monster muscle car of yesteryear. But here's a question for you. Horsepower numbers are one thing, but what about the feel? Did it feel like 175 horses? We'll unpack that mystery in a bit. And all that power translated to around 170 pound-feet of torque. That's the grunt that gets you off the line, the muscle that lets you feel the pull. You need that torque. Now, let's talk speed. The 83 Shelby could hit a top speed of just under 130 miles per hour. Not exactly warp speed, but certainly enough to feel the wind whipping through your, well, maybe through the remaining hairs on your head. Top speed is a number on a page, but what about the journey to get there? Was it a smooth, controlled climb, or a white-knuckle hold-on-for-dear-life experience? We'll circle back to that nail-biting detail. Beyond the engine, the 83 Shelby had some standout features that made it more than just an engine on wheels. It boasted a sport-tuned suspension, which meant it could actually handle a corner without feeling like it was going to roll over and play dead. Imagine that. A muscle car that could turn. It's like finding out your grumpy uncle can actually do a backflip. And those unique Shelby wheels and graphics, they were like the automotive equivalent of a power suit. They just looked right. They screamed, "I'm sporty and I'm slightly less likely to crash into a ditch than my predecessors." But here's the thought to chew on. Were these features enough to truly set it apart, or were they just window dressing? In 1983, if you wanted to park one of these bad boys in your driveway, it would have set you back roughly $8,300. Think about what you could buy for $8,300 today. Maybe a slightly used scooter and a whole lot of ramen noodles? But back then, that got you a slice of American muscle. Well, evolving muscle. But hold on a second, that was the original cost. What's the story now? Alright, time for a quick pit stop. Are you loving this deep dive into the 83 Shelby? Want to keep your engine revving with more fascinating car facts and stories? Then smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We've got more horsepower-packed history coming right at you. Don't be a backseat driver, join the ride. Now, where were we? Ah yes, the original cost. But fast forward to today, and finding a pristine 1983 Dodge Charger Shelby is like finding a politician who keeps their promises. Rare, but not entirely mythical. A well-maintained example can easily fetch upwards of $20,000, and sometimes even more if it's in exceptional condition or has some rare options. That's quite an appreciation, isn't it? It's like investing in Beanie Babies, but successful. But here's a question that'll get your gears turning. What makes one 83 Shelby worth more than another? Is it just mileage and paint job, or is there something more? Officially, the total number of 1983 Dodge Charger Shelbys built is around $7,500. That's a fairly limited run, making them somewhat exclusive. But wait, there's a shadowy tale behind those numbers. Did you know that Shelby engineers allegedly experimented with a batch of prototype models in 1983? These cars weren't meant for public consumption. Rumor has it they were equipped with a next-level suspension setup and an experimental turbocharger system. We're talking performance upgrades that could have pushed the horsepower well beyond the advertised 175, closer to a jaw-dropping 220. That's not all. Supposedly, these stealth Shelbys were built for testing, but a handful mysteriously vanished from the official records. Could these lost legends still be out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right gearhead to uncover their secrets? So, the 1983 Dodge Charger Shelby. On paper, it was a turbocharged 4-cylinder with decent horsepower, respectable torque, and a reasonable top speed. It had some sporty features and a price tag that, in retrospect, looks like a bargain. But here's the million-dollar question. Did it truly crush the competition, or was it more like a friendly nudge? What was the competition back then anyway? Were we comparing apples to apples, or apples to slightly smaller turbocharged apples? But wait, there's more! Let's dive a little deeper into the nitty-gritty, shall we? Something that often gets glossed over is the actual driving experience. Numbers on a spec sheet are one thing, but the way a car feels is something else entirely. Imagine sliding into those high-bolstered sports seats. They weren't just for show, they were designed to hug you tight when you decided to throw the car into a corner with slightly more enthusiasm than strictly necessary. Did they succeed? Was it like a supportive hug from a long-lost friend, or more like being squeezed by a well-meaning but overly enthusiastic relative? And that Shelby steering wheel? It wasn't just a round thing you held onto. It was designed to feel just right in your hands, giving you a real sense of connection to what the front wheels were doing, or at least what they were supposed to be doing. But here's a thought. Could that connection overcome the fact that you weren't wrestling with a massive V8 under the hood? Could finesse replace brute force? Now, let's talk about sound. While it lacked the deep rumble of a V8, that turbocharged four-cylinder had its own unique soundtrack. The whistle of the turbo spooling up, the subtle hiss of the wastegate. It was a different kind of symphony, a more technological serenade. And if you opted for the premium sound system, you could layer your own tunes on top of that mechanical melody. Picture this, cruising down the highway with your favorite cassette tape blasting, the turbocharger whistling its own tune in harmony. Pure 80s bliss, right? But here's a question that might make you scratch your head. Did the sound of that turbocharger inspire excitement, or did it leave you yearning for the roar of a V8? But what if I told you the 1983 Shelby had a secret twin, one that wasn't supposed to exist? Alright, brace yourselves, because here comes that mind-blowing twist we promised. Remember those official production numbers of around 7,500 for the 1983 Shelby? Well, here's the thing they didn't put in the brochures. Rumor has it, incredible sources whisper about this in hushed tones amongst serious collectors, that there was a small, almost mythical batch of 83 Shelbys. We're talking maybe a few dozen, possibly even less, that were equipped with a secretly upgraded turbocharger and engine internals. We're talking horsepower figures nudging closer to and maybe exceeding 200. These weren't officially documented, they weren't advertised, they were like automotive ninjas, slipping out of the factory and into the hands of, well, nobody quite knows who. Some say they were special orders for executives. Others claim they were experimental models that somehow escaped the crusher. Imagine stumbling across one of those. It's like finding a winning lottery ticket that also drives really fast. This changes everything, doesn't it? Suddenly, the 83 Shelby isn't just a sporty coupe, it's a potential treasure hunt. And placing that twist right here, smack dab in the middle, makes you question everything you've heard so far, doesn't it? It makes you wonder if the 83 Shelby was more than met the eye, a wolf in slightly less wolfish clothing. Now, let's add a bit more fuel to this fire. Think about the cultural context of the early 1980s. Fuel economy was becoming a bigger concern, and the muscle car era in its purest form was starting to fade. The 83 Shelby was, in many ways, a response to those changing times. It was an attempt to blend the spirit of a muscle car with the realities of a new automotive landscape. It was like trying to teach your grandpa how to use TikTok, a bit awkward, but with good intentions. But did it succeed in bridging that gap, or did it fall somewhere in between? Consider the competition at the time. What else was out there that the 83 Shelby was trying to go toe-to-toe with? Were we talking about other sporty coupes, or were there still some lingering V8 behemoths trying to hold on to their crown? Understanding the competitive landscape gives us a better sense of whether the Shelby was truly a contender or just a spirited participant. It's like knowing who's in the other lane before you try to start a drag race. And let's not forget the design. The sharp lines and angular styling of the 83 Shelby were very much of their time. Some love it, some not so much. But regardless of your personal taste, that design played a role in its identity. It was a visual statement. It said, I'm modern, I'm sporty, I might have shoulder pads under my hood. But did that design help it stand out, or did it just blend in with other geometric shapes on wheels of the era? So, was the 1983 Dodge Charger Shelby truly built to crush the competition? Perhaps not in the way the fire-breathing muscle cars of the 60s and 70s did. It was a different kind of competitor, leaner, more agile, and with a surprising secret or two lurking beneath its hood. It was a sign of the times, a bridge between two eras. And maybe, just maybe, those mythical high-output versions prove that even in a time of change, the spirit of raw power wasn't entirely extinguished. Don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your fellow car enthusiasts. Your support keeps us digging into these fascinating automotive stories. And if you've got any stories about the 83 Shelby, or even better, if you think you've seen one of these elusive high-output models, let us know in the comments below. We're always up for a good automotive mystery. Subscribe to the Muscle Car Vault so that you never miss out on another amazing video. And Don't forget to check out the other videos on our channel. You surely won't regret it.